I've just wrapped up a 7-day adventure on the stunning Celebrity Ascent, and this cruise, it had everything. An almost denied boarding in Athens, gale force winds in Mykonos, bargaining for genuine fakes in Turkey, and a surprise reunion with an old shipmate. It was the first time my mum cruised with me where I wasn't crew, and as someone who used to work on ships, seeing both sides, crew and guest, gave me a whole new perspective. So, does Celebrity live up to the hype? Let's just say there were some surprises. This trip began in Athens and carried me along with 3,200 other passengers to the iconic cliffs of Santorini. Then we were off to windy Mykonos, where your hair doesn't stand a chance. Kusadasi followed, the land of genuine fakes and some serious haggling. And finally we arrived in Valletta, Malta, where history literally lines the streets. And in between all that, we had 2 blissful sea days to unwind, explore the ship and fully soak up the Celebrity experience. Mum and I arrived at Terminal B in Athens at exactly 12 p.m, excited, a little sweaty and fully ready to start our cruise on Celebrity Ascent. But things went sideways fast. I hadn't been able to log into the Celebrity app before the cruise, so we dropped our bags, headed to the desk, and that's when the agent looked up and said something no cruiser ever wants to hear. "We can't find your booking." And they can't find us! Even after I handed over my printed confirmation, still nothing showed.
You can see the booking information, the payment, everything. We don't think it's fake.
Yeah.
Thank you, it's not fake. I can assure you it's not fake.
Okay, so
We were told to take a seat and wait while they contacted the ship directly. So we sat down next to another couple who were also having boarding issues. 10 minutes turned into an hour, and before we knew it, we'd been waiting for 2. But then it got worse. An officer came outside and walked right up to the couple that we were sat next to. With a quiet voice and a serious face, he told them they wouldn't be able to board because of a visa issue. And all I could think was, we're next. He's going to turn to us any second now and say, sorry, you can't get on board. So I was already imagining the video title, Denied Boarding in Athens. A video I'm very happy that I'm not filming. And then we figured it out. My final payment hadn't gone through, and I had completely missed all of the emails that Celebrity had sent to me saying, please pay. So I had shown up to board a cruise that technically I had not paid for. Thankfully, the check-in team were incredibly kind and said that they would just add it to my onboard account and I could pay for it once I was on board. I honestly could have cried with relief. So we finally made it on board at about 2:45 p.m, sweaty, relieved and absolutely ready for a drink. Now, since we were embarking later, we headed straight to our muster station and then to our cabin to drop our bags. Now, first impressions, the cabin was gorgeous. Calming beige tones, warm orange accents, which I loved. Loads of storage space and honestly, the biggest bathroom I have ever had when cruising on a cruise ship. I'll dive into the cabin details a bit later because while there's lots to love, the plug socket situation, yeah, that's something we need to talk about. This was the first cruise my mum had been on where I wasn't crew, so we did something we had never been able to do before. We went for a drink. When you're a crew member, there is a strict zero tolerance alcohol policy, so sharing that little moment, just the 2 of us, both as guests, was really special. After a little tipple, it was time to set sail. Mum and I made our way to the open deck for the sailaway party and watched Athens slowly fade away into the distance. The sailaway itself was beautiful, music playing, that buzz of excitement in the air, but as the wind started to pick up, we decided to head inside for dinner. And what we didn't know then was that the wind, well, it was just getting started. Mum and I headed to the Ocean View Cafe for dinner. I almost always have dinner in the buffet on embarkation day, especially after a long travel day like this one, and after the stress of almost not boarding, we just wanted something easy and fuss-free, which is exactly what the Ocean View Cafe offered. Even though there was plenty of entertainment happening around the ship, we kept it simple, went back to our cabin for a bit of relaxing and called it an early night because we needed it. Our first full day of the voyage was spent in Santorini, which is a tender port. So before heading ashore, Mum and I made our way back to the Ocean View Cafe for breakfast. And let me tell you, the food selection here is insane. Eggs any way you like them, smoked salmon, American and English breakfast, you name it, they've got it. One thing I love about this space is the high ceilings. Even when it was busy, it still felt airy and open. The seating layout is smart too. There's plenty of room to walk around without the buffet shuffle, and if you want to eat in peace, there is a beautiful outdoor seating area where you can enjoy your breakfast and some fresh air. Most mornings, Mum and I enjoyed breakfast here, and the key word is enjoyed. It was consistently great. We also tried the Cosmopolitan one morning, which was your classic main dining room breakfast. Really pleasant, but pretty standard. Like, nothing set it apart from any other main dining room experience I've had. Now, the real hidden gem is Eden. On my cruise at least, it felt like no one even knew breakfast was being served there. Even during peak hours, it was practically empty. The food was a bit hit and miss, which might explain the lack of people, but if you get easily overwhelmed by crowds, Eden could be your quiet little breakfast haven. So after breakfast, we decided to head ashore. Now, normally I dread tender ports. They're usually crowded, chaotic, and just a bit of a faff. But this one was actually pretty smooth. A big part of that, I think, was thanks to the magic carpet. Yeah, that big orange feature hanging off the side of the ship that I originally thought was just a flashy gimmick. It actually serves a purpose. Turns out they use it for tender embarkation, and because it's so open and spacious, the whole process felt way more relaxed and organised than usual. The town of Fira in Santorini sits high up on a cliff, and there's a few ways that you can get to the top of that cliff. You can take the cable car, which costs $10, but you can expect a long queue in the morning. You can also ride a donkey, which also costs $10, but I personally would never do it. Back when I was crew, we did these Santorini runs all the time, and I saw so many passengers come back with injuries, people falling off donkeys, getting crushed when the donkey slipped down the path. It was chaos, and I was not looking to break my leg on the ascent to the top of the cliff. So Mum and I decided to brave the walk to the top. I would say it took us about an hour with a few breaks along the way. Now, I personally don't mind the smell of donkey poo. Maybe that's because I live in the English countryside, so I'm used to it. But if you have a sensitive nose, consider this your warning. It's pungent. The path is also really uneven and slippery, so it's not the walk for sandals or heels. And weirdly, I actually think it's harder walking down than it is up because it's so slippery. The only part I really didn't enjoy about the walk was the donkeys. They come past in herds, and when they do, you have to press yourself up against the wall in hopes that they don't bump into you, which they do, and it is a little bit intimidating. But the views were spectacular. Totally worth it, and hey, a little uphill cardio makes me feel way less guilty about all the food I'm inevitably going to demolish on the ship this week. Mum had never been to Santorini before, so we were more than happy to wander through the little back streets, weaving in and out of those iconic blue and white buildings. We were anchored alongside two other ships, so the town was definitely busy, but after soaking it all in and grabbing a well-earned beer, we headed back to the ship around 2 p.m, which was perfect timing because by then there was no line for the cable car. Now, each cart of the cable car fits 6 people, and the ride takes about 5 minutes, and I have to say, was a lot smoother than expected. Unlike the next day, which was spent in windy Mykonos. This was another tender port, but unlike Santorini, Mykonos is notorious for its wind. And let me tell you, the tender ride was choppy. A few people got off looking pretty pale. We happened to be anchored alongside with the Virgin Voyages. And for those of you who don't know, I actually worked as a crew member on Virgin Voyages from 2020 to 2023 and documented the whole experience right here on this channel. So today was special because I got to meet up with my best mate, Julia. When you work on cruise ships, there are no days off, so you get really close with your onboard crew family. The last time I saw Julia was 8 months ago when I cruised on Valiant Lady, so I was absolutely chuffed that I got to spend 2 hours catching up with her before she had to head back on board to start work. Once Julia headed back to the ship, Mum and I set off to explore windy Mykonos. And oh my goodness, was that name well earned. Even deep inside the maze of Greek alleyways where you'd think you'd be sheltered from the wind, we were getting absolutely blown about. We wandered over to Little Venice and the famous windmills, which is all within easy walking distance. We stopped for yet another beer, did a bit of people watching, and then decided to head back to the ship to get out of the wind, which was about a 10-minute walk from the centre of town. One thing to note about Mykonos apart from the wind is the streets are very cobbly, so this is another port where sensible footwear is advised. Once back on board, Mum and I made a beeline for the pool deck, ready to top up our tans. The lower deck was packed, so we headed up to the upper level where there was still plenty of loungers available. The sun was shining, the music was playing, and everything was idyllic. The ship actually has one of the longest pools at sea, and for once it felt like the pool deck was working the way it was supposed to. But then everything changed. As we sailed away from Mykonos, the wind began to shift. Subtly at first, just a whisper through the railings, but within minutes, that whisper turned into a roar. What started as a light breeze escalated into something wild. Towels took flight like kites, sun loungers began sliding across the deck, colliding with each other. Drinks were knocked over, hats were gone, and I stayed. I planted myself on a lounger, hair whipping around like I was in a Beyonce video, and watched it all unfold. The wind didn't let up either. Mum and I quickly settled into a bit of an evening routine. We'd catch the 7:30 show in the theatre and then head to dinner. I have to say, the theatre shows on Celebrity Ascent were fabulous. Lorraine Crosby, that Lorraine Crosby from I Would Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf, and she absolutely brought the house down, as you would expect. Stephen Barry, a staple on the cruise circuit, and for good reason. He's got an insane vocal range, but also weaves in comedy so effortlessly, and the show feels more like a one-man variety act. And then there was Residence, a high-energy production performed by the ship's entertainment team. It celebrates iconic songs from the biggest Las Vegas residencies, and let me tell you, they nailed it. So the theatre performances, genuinely, I can't fault them, like top-tier entertainment. However, there was a show in Eden called Shimmerbox that, while visually creative and entertaining in its own way, was a bit tough to sit through vocally. That said, entertainment is so personal. So just because a few things work for my mum and I doesn't mean that you won't love them. And speaking of personal preference, while some people love the formality of dining in the main restaurant every night, Mum and I actually found ourselves drawn to the Ocean View Cafe for most of our dinners. The selection was just that good. We did try the Cosmopolitan, and the food and service were both lovely, no complaints at all, but for this cruise we really appreciated the ease of the buffet. No set times, no dressing up, just a relaxed atmosphere and a fantastic variety of food. One thing I loved was how they took inspiration from the ports we were visiting. On the night we left Kusadasi, the buffet was loaded with baklava, Turkish delight and other regional dishes. It felt thoughtful and it was really delicious. And speaking of the port of Kusadasi, this was our third port. Kusadasi offers the chance to explore some incredible historical sites like Ephesus and the House of the Virgin Mary. But this time, Mum and I went full tourist and hit the markets because Kusadasi is also known for one thing in particular, its genuine fakes. And let me tell you, the shopping experience was half the fun. Haggling in the markets is part of the culture and honestly kind of addictive. And the next thing you know, you've got a Chanel bag in one hand and a Gucci hoodie in the other, all for the price of a sandwich. And here's the best thing, every time Mum and I bought something, they'd throw in a free card holder. Just a small gesture, but it made the whole experience feel personal and generous. And speaking of little extras, this is exactly why I book my cruises through Cruises It. I've partnered with them because they can offer you the best rate guaranteed for your cruise, and they often throw in little extras like onboard credit, room upgrades, and you just don't get that when you're booking directly through a cruise line. And they don't just give you a booking, they give you service. Especially if you're a first-time cruiser, this kind of support is invaluable. They'll guide you through the whole process and make sure that you go on the right cruise for you and your family. And the cruise line you choose could be the difference between you only wanting to cruise in the future and never wanting to cruise again. And for a lot of people, going on a cruise is a once-in-a-lifetime experience anyway, so you want to make sure that you get it right and you have a good time, which is exactly what Cruises It will ensure you do. So if you're ready to book a cruise or you just have some questions, you can click the link down below in the description box or call the number on screen now to speak to my trusted travel advisors who will get you the best rate guaranteed and also throw in a few little extras just like the Turks did for me and my mom. But I have to say, me and my mom had a great time in Turkey. Everyone was so friendly and it was just such a lovely day. It was funny walking around the ship that night and seeing everyone decked out in their new designer gear. I can't imagine the pre-loved Louis Vuitton boutique store on board made many sales that day. Now, day 5 was our first full day at sea and the first time I really took the opportunity to properly explore the ship. And honestly, I was astonished by how beautiful Celebrity Ascent is. Take the atrium, or as it's officially called, the Grand Plaza. It's easily one of the most stunning spaces I have ever seen on a cruise ship. It's sleek, modern and completely jaw-dropping. Throughout the cruise, the space really became the hub of the ship, especially because it's surrounded by some of the most popular venues like Le Grand Bistro, Cafe El Baccio, Raw on 5, World Class Bar, and of course right in the centre you'll find the Martini Bar. So you can grab a seat at any of these venues and just people watch, which, let's be honest, is peak cruise entertainment because you will see see some truly unhinged things. I spent a bit of time at Cafe El Baccio during the sea days getting some work done. Great seating, strong coffee and complimentary pastries. What more do you need? And it was actually the only place I found where I could plug my laptop into charge, but we'll get to the cabin situation soon. The spaces are just beautiful. Look at guest relations, for example. It's modern, sleek, and I'm not surprised it's won Forbes' Best Resort at Sea award. A signature Celebrity feature is the lawn club. Although the Ascent is missing the actual lawn, no grass here, but even without it, it's still a lovely space to relax with plenty of lounges and a calm vibe. The infinity pools up here are gorgeous, but just a quick word of warning, don't go pulling your wedgie out because the glass sides mean people can see everything, even from a long way away. So don't forget you're in a see-through pool. And right at the back of the ship, you'll find one of my favourite spots on board, the Sunset Bar. This space feels like a love letter to Greece. It's been redesigned with Santorini in mind, and honestly, it does feel like an extension of the islands. I also had the chance to speak with some crew, a few of whom I actually worked with on other ships, and from what I could gather, the morale is really good. One thing that genuinely made me happy was seeing some of the crew members eating in the Ocean View Cafe from time to time. It might seem like a small thing, but as someone who has worked on board, I know how meaningful it is to be able to eat in the passenger areas because the food is so much better than in the mess generally. They also mentioned that their cabins were really nice, which isn't too surprising because it is a new ship, but it's still great to hear. And speaking of cabins, after spending a few days in ours, I can confirm that it is just as good as it looks. So first I'll go through what I loved and then I'll go through what I didn't love. The bed was like sleeping on a cloud. The bathroom, huge by cruise ship standards and really well laid out. There's a great vanity area, the lighting at the dressing table is perfect for doing makeup, and the storage is fabulous with lots of drawers, lots of hangers, even lots of little shelves and cubbies. I also really appreciated the little details like the movie selection on the TV. Mum and I watched Ice Age one night, and the soft nightlight in the bathroom, so when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're not stumbling around in the dark. All in all, it is one of the nicest cabins I've stayed in, but let's talk about what could have been better. At first, I really liked the sleek little box with all the plug sockets. In theory, it's a tidy way to charge multiple devices, but in reality, not great. The sockets aren't spaced out far enough, so you can't actually use them all at once, and my Apple laptop charger didn't even fit. There are USB ports by the bed, which is great, and over the years I've come to realise that aesthetics matter to me. Being in a well-designed space genuinely affects how I experience a cruise, and it's easily one of the most beautiful ships I've ever been on. So, does Celebrity live up to its reputation? I think so. After spending a week on board Celebrity Ascent, I totally get why people are loyal to Celebrity. The thoughtful design, the elevated experience, and the little details make a difference. And while no cruise is ever perfect, this one came pretty close, minus the beginning. And if this is the direction modern cruising is heading, I'm all in. Thanks for watching, guys.